Y'all already know what it is. It's Big Pressure TV. We got another classic interview. We got the God on deck, the brother Mr. Marvin Cotton, author, community servant, not to mention a true representation of black excellence. So what we want to talk about right now, beloved, before you tapped into the transformation of becoming Marvin Cotton, the businessman, Marvin Cotton is the community servant, Marvin Cotton, the activist, Marvin Cotton, the man who ran for political office and things of that nature. Who was Marvin Cotton before the transition, before the actual change?
Oh wow, that's a pretty heavy question because I've lived many different lives in the life that I'm living. I grew up on the west side of Detroit, and growing up in the west side of Detroit, not only did I grow up on the block, I grew up in the streets.
Yes, sir.
That's a life in and of itself. I grew up raised by a single mother, fatherless. My father was a drug addict and an alcoholic. So, all I got from him was really broken promises. I never, got a single truth from him the entire time. And when he was around when I was a child, he was very abusive, and that caused a lot of chaos in the home. I grew up very poor. So that led me into the streets. I wasn't an angel by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
But I was just a young guy trying to live life to the best of my ability. When I was 21 years old, I was arrested, charged with first-degree murder, and sent to prison, wrongfully convicted. And I spent 20 years in prison, and that's a life in and of itself as well. So here I go, living a completely new life, different from the street life that I lived. And then now I'm out and I'm living a completely different life again. So I'm like on my third life.
Your third resurrection.
Right. But I would say that I was an underdeveloped youth that hadn't even begun to tap into my potential, and really was kind of aimless. I always had a desire to do things with my life and to do great things, but I didn't even know where to start. I always wanted to have an impact. Right. I just didn't know what that looked like.
Ain't no doubt. That's interesting, beloved. Let me ask you this: what type of impact do you think your environment had on you growing up? Because coming from the west side of Detroit, it's a comparison, east side, west side, but the hood is the hood, right? So coming up in that environment, what type of impact did that environment have on you as a young adolescent, as a young black male?
The word impact is very interesting.
Yes, sir.
When you think of it, impact is actually something colliding or making contact with something else.
Right.
Pressure. And we're on the perfect show for that. But impact. You're born and raised into a poor family. You're born and raised clothed in skin that is rejected by the entire world. You're born and raised around a bunch of other people that's in the exact same situation like that, which creates competition for things that ain't even worthy of that competitive spirit.
Right.
So we're destroying each other in our communities. So we talk about impact.
Constant impact.
Raised by a single mother, impact. Father was addicted to drugs, impact. Go to school and being educated by a system that ain't even worthy to be teaching a child, the Detroit public school system, more impact.
Big pressure.
You see, so those things have an effect on the human being. Some of us, or most of us, unfortunately, it folds, it breaks. It does.
Right.
Even if it don't break us all the way down, it leaves trauma.
Right.
Because that's what impact is. Impact, you get into a car accident and a car smash into another car, that's impact. It leaves trauma to that car, even if it's drivable.
Right.
And a lot of us think we good because we're drivable. We weathered the storm.
Right.
We're tough enough to make it out of the cities of Detroit, and we got these good jobs and we're doing our thing, but we haven't been in the shop.
Most definitely.
Car raggedy as hell.
Most definitely.
You know what I'm saying? It's working, but it's raggedy as hell.
Man.
So the impact it had in my life, it will take years to start.
To unpack.
Absolutely, to unpack it. I like that.
Yes, sir, beloved. Now, at some point, you found yourself facing a natural life sentence.
Yeah, not only facing it,
Withstanding.
on my back, you
Man.
know, absolutely.
Now, what was that like for you, though? What impact did that have on you being a young adolescent, transitioning to a point of manhood? What impact, like we talking about natural life is buried alive. What impact did that have on your psyche growing up?
You a natural life sentence show you who you are and who you not.
Now, how much time did you do it exactly?
I did 19 years, 7 months, and 12 days of that natural life sentence.
That's how you know.
They had absolutely every intention on me dying in prison. I didn't get let out. I didn't get paroled out. I didn't get let out because of some technicality. I got out because I was innocent, so I was never supposed to be in there. Even people that are supposed to be in prison, a natural life sentence is enough to crush them. A life sentence is enough to crush them. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years is enough to crush them.
Right.
And I seen that every day in prison, men that were crushed by the time that they were carrying on their back. But facing that, even leading up to a trial, is a trial.
Man.
I talk about it in my book.
Talk about it, beloved. Better not broken.
Absolutely. I talk about it in my book on, just the impact that a trial has on you and the fire that it applies to you and how it burns everything off, even relationships.
Right.
You lose almost everything when you're fighting for your life. You lose the things that you had, you lose the material that you had, and you lose relationships and friendships and stuff like that.
And the only thing you really have to fight for in that moment is your own being. The only thing you have to fight for at that moment is your own being, your own essence.
Absolutely. And what that does is a trial actually puts you in the room with the only person that you are supposed to be in the room with, just
right.
You and God.
Right, yes, sir.
So you lose all the relationships, you lose all of the friendships, you lose, and the ones that you hold on to and maintain, they are forever changed.
Right, most definitely.
Because people are learning things about themselves as they try to support you.
Most definitely.
Because it ain't easy to support somebody that's in prison.
Most
it ain't easy to see all of this potential bottled up and caged up, unfulfilled, and people that shared experience with you to see you hurting and hurting and hurting. That's not easy to do. So they're learning things about themselves, and it's affecting the relationship. And some of them, or most of them, turn their back on you.
Most definitely.
I lost maybe 95% of the people that was in my life when I was in prison because they couldn't stand to see me in prison.
Man, talk about it.
They just was like, it's easier not to see you, So hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, ain't no doubt about it. I see the guy came in the building. This is right hand man. Listen.
Yeah.
I ain't expect this, but I salute it though. Get in front of the camera real quick, beloved, so they can know. Cause when he rocking, you rock.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're gonna keep
and speaking of the 95%,
he stood tall.
Absolutely, 95% of people that I lost, he was in the 5%, and not just the 5%, but the top of the 5%.
My man.
Answered every call. When you're doing time. You don't have any hands or feet. You don't have nothing. All you have is whoever answered that call and whatever they can help you with or assist you with from out here.
And that's few far and in between.
Absolutely. And this was my go-to person for everything.
Now, if you comfortable sitting there, beloved, you can stay there. You can get back over there. It's up to you. My man. That's how you know he's a soldier.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, though, God. Going through that process, right? Going through everything that you experienced facing a natural life sentence, what caused you to change the trajectory of your thinking? Because at some point, you entered into that environment as just an adolescent, a misguided adolescent, a person who thought he knew everything. But at some point, something changed the course of your thinking. What was that? What was that impact?
Being set up by people that's smarter than you.
Most definitely.
I came to a realization that where I was at mentally was not enough to even protect myself from something that I didn't deserve.
Right.
I came to that realization, and I knew I had to grow. I didn't know what that looked like, because how can you know what more look like? You don't know what more for yourself look like,
right.
Because if you knew what it looked like, you would be that.
Yes, exactly.
You can't see into the future of what a better you look like. Even if you desire and want better, you can't see what better looks like.
Yes, sir.
Until you get there. And I knew that I wanted more. I knew that I wanted better. I knew I had to be better in order to wrestle and do battle with the corruption that I was up against. And I knew where I was at that moment. I knew I wasn't even close to competing with that.
Right.
So that's what motivated me on that journey to just grow. It's like it's time to grow. I remember sitting in the prison cell, and my cellmate had went on a call out. A call out is when somebody, whether they go to the law library, the general library, or some medical or something like that. Mm-hmm. And my cellmate went out on a call out, and it left me in this little cell by myself. And I remember sitting on a concrete slab. It was, it's like for the desk. And I'm sitting there like this. I was losing everything. I had just some important people that I thought was really important in my life had just, I hadn't heard from them, couldn't get in contact with them, and they falling off. And I'm losing the last little bit of property that I had. Everything is just slipping straight through my fingers. And I'm sitting there like, damn, I'm not enough to hold on to this stuff in my life.
Wow.
Like, how do I need to grow? What do I need to become in order to hold on to the little bit that I have left, which was nothing.
Right.
And that's what kind of started that journey. I promised myself sitting there in the cell that day. I didn't know it was a prayer at the time. I'm just,
it was an affirmation.
I'm talking to myself.
Right.
I don't even think I knew the word affirmation at that time.
Yes, sir. Ain't no doubt.
But I told myself, like, if I'm gonna get out of here, I know I have to grow. I know I have to become supreme. I know that I have to become better on every level, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I knew that I needed to do these things. And I committed to myself that day, and I didn't look back.
Who would you say had the greatest impact on you in that environment? Because when you're going through something as intense as that situation, right, you facing a natural life sentence, and you're a young, rambunctious guy. You're a guy who come from the streets, you know what I mean? You know how the young guys is, you know it all. They think they know it all, right? But then you encounter a guy who impact your mind with maybe some type of knowledge, wisdom, or understanding that change the trajectory of your thinking.
Prison is filled with wise men.
Yes, sir.
People say it casually that some of the smartest people are in prison. Some of the strongest brothers is in prison. They throw it out there because they've heard it.
Right.
But it's the truth.
Yes, sir.
You can meet people in there. They can literally change the entire way you think because they've been in there suffering to grow themselves for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And here you go having an hour conversation with somebody that it took 50 years to develop the thought that they're about to give you in an hour.
Yes, sir.
So I can't identify one single person, but the person
that's the same thing that Brother Field said. He couldn't identify just one person, but go ahead, beloved.
It's the truth. Because, you're talking about Phil X.
Yes, sir.
I never met him inside of prison. I didn't meet him until I got out.
Yes, sir.
But the things that I heard about him while I was in prison inspired me.
Yes, sir.
It had an effect on me. It had an impact on me. But I remember walking the yard with a brother named Terrell X. And
one of the guys.
Absolutely. And he was so disciplined, man. I'm talking about like when you see him, that's all you seen was discipline. You seen somebody that was in complete control of themselves.
Yes, sir.
And I wanted that. That inspired that. That's what connected me, gave me an example of what discipline looked like. Then I met a brother, Terry X.
Mr. Triggs.
Absolutely. Who is so wise and so thoughtful in the way
calculating.
Absolutely, that when he's in the room with you, it's almost like you feel that he can read your thoughts.
Most definitely.
That's how wise he was.
Yes, sir.
You know, he knew what you would say before you would say it. He knew what to say in order to get you to say certain things. And it was so beautiful being around a human being like that, that it's going to have an effect and influence on your life. And then you're meeting other brothers, Maurice X. Allen.
Praise God.
Absolutely. You meeting Luke Ma, who should be home
Praise
soon.
God. Yes, sir.
You meeting all of these different brothers, Darren X. Hurd. You meeting these brothers, and they're so beautiful in their thinking, and they've spent years and years studying and going through the pain of getting it wrong. Getting it wrong so much that they mastered getting it right enough to give it to you walking the big yard.
Talk that talk, beloved.
That it has an effect on you. They've given the different messages to so many different men.
Angels in the sky.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And depending on where you at the time will determine whether or not you can get it. And I was just so ready to grow. That was my desire. So I was looking for it. I was able to learn from my enemies. I was able to learn from people that didn't like me because I wanted to grow so much that I would take their maneuvers against me to learn how not to let somebody move like that against
Most
me.
definitely.
Because I wanted it so bad.
Most definitely.
So I couldn't identify a single individual. I have too much respect for the womb of prison and what it did for me to identify a single person, because all of us grew in that womb. You know, you and I we've walked more miles together than we probably can even figure out.
Most definitely.
And we always have productive conversations.
Most
We
definitely.
had conversations like this.
Most definitely, God.
You know, we planned our future walking that yard. We talked about experiences that we seen playing out on the yard and gave predictions
Most definitely.
about how situations would turn out. To where, you know, the average person out here, they're not really making predictions like that. But
Right.
we see two people arguing on the yard, and we literally
You
know
already know the
exactly
outcome.
how it's going. This is how this is going. He gonna respond like this. He gonna do this. That person over there gonna get involved. That's gonna draw them in. This and this and that. Now we can do this to stop the whole thing.
Right.
But if we do that, then what's gonna be the effect? You know, we will literally strategize
Most
like
definitely.
that.
Most definitely.
And we developed a sixth sense.
Yes, sir.
In doing that, I talk about that in my book as well.
You did?
Called Prison Census. It's
I
a
know
chapter called
that.
Prison Census. So definitely check the book out. You can kind of get a little bit more into the minds of, how we view the world from inside that cage,
Now, at some point, let me ask you this, guy. At some point, or at a particular point, a lot deemed necessary for you to be exonerated, right? For you to come from under a situation that most men don't have the opportunity to overcome, facing natural life. You literally buried alive, right? And you was blessed to be exonerated. What was that feeling like? Because like you say, we talked about, even in the midst of facing whatever we was facing, we talked about these particular moments, right? You never in your mind believed that you was going to face or have to do a natural life sentence. You always believed you was coming home.
Absolutely.
So once you was blessed to be exonerated, what was that feeling like for you?
Not only did I always know that I was getting out of prison, I never thought I was going to do 20 years either.
Most
Though.
definitely.
I couldn't see that. Even at year 15, I couldn't see a year 19, 20. We talked about impact earlier. I want you to think about one of those fights that you got into, physical fight that you got into that, you didn't necessarily win, or it was,
It happens.
it's questionable.
Yeah.
A lot of those punches you receive, you don't even feel them.
Exactly.
You might feel that first one. You might feel a few of them here and there.
But the adrenaline won't, yeah.
Absolutely. But the numbness that you feel when you in battle, kind of, it nullifies all of the pain, if you will. So when I was exonerated October 1st, 2020, and walked out the door, I was numb. I was battle fatigued.
How many appeals did you face?
Almost 22 appeals,
Man.
21 denials. So here I go, I'm battle fatigued. So when I walked out of prison, I was, of course, happy, but I didn't have the emotional connection to it at the time. So I'm linking up with my people, and everybody's happy, they crying, they looking at me, everybody looking like they just saw a ghost, and I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't empathize with why they were reacting the way that they were. So I found myself pretending because I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be the guy that just did 20 years in prison and get out and now I'm crazy. So I found myself. I didn't want to be the bug. I didn't want to be the guy.
They're gonna put their label on you.
Absolutely.
They don't understand.
I didn't want to be labeled, so I found myself pretending and acting out how people thought I should respond to them responding to my presence. And I knew that I was doing it in real time.
You was aware of the fact that you was acting.
Absolutely, because I was so numb from the experience that I knew that I should be feeling something because 4 days earlier,
so powerful.
Before I found out that I was going home, I found out like maybe 4 days before I walked out the door how the process was going to play out. And it was, from that point forward, that numbness just kicked in. So my last 4 days in prison was numb. And my next 3 weeks was completely numb, out, and then it started coming back slowly. But it took about a year to kind of get that off of me, to fully be able to
tap back into your humanity.
Absolutely, and my human is still coming back.
Right.
My girl, we might be out, my fiance, and a situation might be going on, and I'm not responding like a human being would respond. I'm kind of robotic.
You're on yard time.
Right. This.
Survival.
Right. I might be a little dispassionate,
right.
Whatever, and she just tapped me under the table.
Bring your awareness
right,
back.
Right. Put your human on. That's what she said.
Yeah.
Like put your. So she'd tell me to put my human on.
Yes, sir.
And now she just tapped me because she don't want nobody to be aware that she, what she's saying. But afterwards she'd tell me, like, yeah, you gotta put your human on.
That's heavy, ain't
yeah. But that's due to the trauma.
Yes, sir. Levels of the trauma.
Absolutely, and we all suffer that.
Most definitely.
Hopefully, I can be whole again one day. With that. But it's a superpower in there as well. I try to look at the positive and everything, and sometimes it allows me to, make calculations without being bogged down by the emotional
detachment.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
But it's also a weakness because we need to feel. And in today's time where things are so wrong everywhere, we really need to feel people and feel for people so that we can make good decisions for them.
Let me ask you this: with saying all that, right? You went from facing a natural life sentence, coming home, experiencing life, and then saying, I'm about to run for city council. That take a lot of
state representative.
Yeah, pardon self. But I'm saying pardon self, yes, sir. But the audacity to say that you marginalize, people marginalize you, people put you in this box, right? And then you had in your mind, because you understood your potential at a certain point, that I'm going to run for the state representative of Michigan because I believe that I possess the power, the ability, and the capacity to impact the city. Going back to the word impact.
Right.
Where did that come from?
When I was in prison for that nearly 20 years, and you can attest to it, even though it was surrounded by this big old fence with all these barbed wires and, everything is brick and steel and everything is limited, phone calls is limited, business is limited, I didn't see boundaries or borders. I always tried to reach beyond that. Always. I never seen it. Although it was restrictive, I always strived because I'm like, hey, I'm me.
You still you, yeah.
Right, I'm me.
Yeah.
And just because I'm in prison, I'm not supposed to be here, and I'm not going to even allow you to look at me like I'm supposed to be in prison.
They didn't look at you like that, to be honest with you.
So when I got out, I'm a black man. I don't know if I can claim a young black man anymore, but I'm
You know?
depending on what room we in, I'm a young black man.
Yes, sir.
And you know, I'm not gonna let anybody limit me with their perceptions or any fence that they try to put me around me. You know, people, you know, some people still try to attach a stigma to me. You did 20 years in prison, and so what? I think that what I have inside of me and the connection that I do have with people and the things that I know need to be done, I believe that my voice should be a voice to represent the people's voice in government. We don't have that.
Yes, sir.
When you look at our leaders, and we have some good leaders, we do have some good leaders. We have some great leaders.
Talk about it.
But when you think about our voice that have been trampled over, we don't have that in the Michigan legislature. We got people that's been through some things. True, I know a lot of them, and I helped a lot of them in their campaigns as well.
Right.
But we don't have anybody that's been done 20 years in prison.
Most definitely.
We don't have anybody that's been wrongfully convicted and betrayed and kidnapped by their government in the Michigan legislature, a lawmaker.
Right.
You know, we don't have. I'm sure we have people that grew up poor, but do we have people that grew up living the life that I did?
Right.
See, I understand
both sides.
I understand all sides. It ain't even both sides.
Yes,
that implies two.
Yes,
it's more sides than that.
Most definitely.
You know, because we got that many problems, and I really wanted to, you know, be a voice for the people as well as, you know, try to use my lived experience to help people out. And you know, I'm not done. I don't know if I would run for that particular office again. I don't know, but I haven't stopped in being out here working and trying to help people out.
You think you shoot for the mayor office?
I don't know. It look like all the mayors either go gray or lose out their hair. You know,
you ain't ready for that, huh?
Yeah, I like my hair being as black as possible,
no doubt.
and I like it, you know, staying as much as possible. So
yeah.
You know, but whatever the future holds, it would always, you know, be a decision that I think that I'm ready for. A decision that, you know, my immediate and my family, my support, my team can really get behind, as well as what the people need in that time. Sometimes we have put our own gifts and talents and say, this is what I'm going for, this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
But is this something that the people really need? Do they need you at this time?
Most definitely.
They may not need you at this time in that role.
Facts.
They may not need it. You may be in the way. And, you know, hopefully I can see myself good enough at every level to know whether or not I'm going to be in the way or if I'm something that the people really need.
My man talking that talk, man. Hey, well, you sound like a professional guy.
Well,
you sound polished.
I've been through some stuff.
I believe it. I know it. I don't even believe it. I know it.
Absolutely. And all of us go through some things, but I always try to be a student of people. Always try to be a student of circumstances, because sometimes life don't give you a teacher in an individual. Sometimes life just gives you a teacher in a circumstance.
That's it.
You know, so I'm always looking for that teacher. So I try to learn even when I'm hurting. I try to learn when I'm being hurt.
Right.
And I try to learn even better when my hands have hurt somebody.
That's powerful. Because you know you Teflon, so you heard a little bit too.
I heard a lot.
Hey, no doubt. Let me ask you this, beloved, because you got a book, Better Not Broken. You got a campaign, Better Not Broken, right? A lot of men, people in general, can go through trauma, can go through certain experiences, right? And, you know, they become bitter. You said, or you chose the path of saying, I'm going to become better. And I'm not going to allow what I face or what I experience to not only break me, but to make me bitter. So you created a campaign and also authored a book called Better Not Broken. Talk about that.
Well, you know, Better Not Broken is the spirit in which I try to do everything. I believe that all of the bitter and the angry people are still in prison because they couldn't see themselves out of being blinded by their own bitterness and anger. And the ones that were able to get out of prison bitter and angry, they've brought so much prison with them that they're living isolated
Right.
in a world of opportunity.
Man.
So I knew that I had to leave that in there to get out. So I started doing work on myself while I was in prison.
Right.
I didn't wait. I didn't wait to start doing the work on myself. I started when I was in there, and a lot of the way that I was able to really help myself was to mentor and teach other men.
Most definitely.
I spent a lot of my time.
One of the hardest jobs a man can do is teach a male how to be a man.
Absolutely, and not multiply that.
Most definitely.
Because I did it thousands of times over the course of the 19 years.
Most definitely.
And that helped me, because you gotta grow and become better to help somebody else grow and become better.
Yes, sir.
You don't want to be a hypocrite,
right?
To where you helping everybody become better, but you not helping yourself to become better. Right. So better not broken is the spirit in which I do everything. My book is a book about a lot of the circumstances that I've been through. Really, it's my passion of Christ. It's showing. It's showing the blood. It's showing the hurt. It's showing the pain. But it's also showing the way that I look at it. Not only during that time, but how I looked at it after the fact and how I grew from it. And I wrote it in such a way, hopefully, to where no matter what it is you're going through in life, you can read that book and step into my shoes and look through my eyes and hopefully see your life a little differently, to where you can take the opportunity and grow, opposed to being stuck in the pain.
Most definitely.
Because I think that the way that God intended us to grow is to grow and become better and better and better. He never intended for us to get stuck in the trials that He uses in order to get us to grow. He never intended for us to get stuck.
Right.
So I think that all of us should use our lives, even you with this podcast, this beautiful podcast, is intended to help people along their journey.
Most definitely.
It may not be for me or for you or 20 other people to help somebody completely, but if all of us just do our part to help people, move along in their journey,
right?
I think that's the purpose of all our lives, man.
That's a fact, God. Now let me ask you this: if you can say something to the young Marvin, Money Marvin, if you will, if you could say something to the young version of yourself, what would it be?
Read.
That's powerful.
One of the things that a lot of people didn't know about me until I said it in prison was that when I first was arrested and got locked up, I couldn't read and write.
Most people wouldn't believe that. You feel me, bro? Like real deal, because I know your articulation. I'm talking about from the long, big words to you just basically articulating yourself now. But I know Marvin can execute them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
and that came because I had developed a desire and an appetite, to really grow in that way.
You learn to pontificate on a supreme level.
Right. Absolutely. I had to expand my vernacular. So I come into the system not being able to read and write, and I leave the system having authored many books.
Most definitely.
Now I'm going to be a published author, but I wrote many books when I was in.
Most definitely.
So that was something that was really important to me. So I would tell a younger Marvin, I would sit down with him and teach him how to read, give him books to read.
Give me 3 books you'll tell the young Marvin that he got to feed on.
The Art of War.
Which Sun Tzu,
which is my favorite book now.
Yeah.
I've read that book maybe close to 90 times. They have a version of the Art of War called, by the Demo Group. The translation is by the Demo Group. They actually have a breakdown of all of the text throughout the book, as well as they have 3 essays in the book written by scholars and retired generals and all that. Oh, it's so beautiful. But you get the Art of War translated by the Democrat.
What's the biggest lesson you learned in the Art of War? What was the number one thing that resonates with you in the Art of War?
The objective of war is peace.
And never fight at all.
Absolutely. And if you can achieve peace without it ever being a war, that's the highest expression of winning a war.
Most definitely.
Is never having to hurt somebody. The art of war, if you had to sum it up in a few words, is to take a thing whole.
Right.
You can't take a thing whole if you're destroying it.
Exactly.
So the whole objective is to really, save all of the people on all these different opposing sides that's ready to hurt each other, and come up with a solution that is so big that it wraps everybody up in it and answers all of the needs of the people.
Wow.
And I would give that book to a younger Marvin, just to really understand the world and a better way of moving. You said name 3 books. I read like over 2,000 books when I was.
I know it, what's the other 2 that stood out that a young Marvin would have to read to change the course of his life?
Let me see. I was big into strategy books. I'm big on history, psychology. I love it. Psychology has always been like a passion of mine. I'm trying to think. What's this book?
Because them books was a prerequisite when we experienced.
Yeah. The Secret.
Classic.
Great
Law
book.
of Attraction.
Absolutely. Law of Attraction, The Secret. That's a great book. What it did for me was it made me very aware of the words that I chose to think and say.
Yes, sir.
To where now I'm like, I don't even want to think these words. Let me think better words.
Right.
Let me say better words to attract better things.
Most definitely.
And if you're using better words, you're talking to people, you're going to have a different reaction.
Most definitely.
So that was another big one for me. And scripture. Bible, Quran. Absolutely. and because you have to feed yourself spiritually.
Most definitely.
You got the Secret, which is mental and emotional and spiritual. You got the Art of War, which is very strategic, very mental, very intellectual. And then you got the scriptures, which feeds you spiritually. So them would be my 3 things that I would give to a younger Marvin. Like, here, man.
Most definitely.
And just not saying to him, I wish I can sit down with a younger me.
Right.
And one day I will,
Most definitely. What would you say to the young brothers that's out here in the city of Detroit and, just random in the cities in America, right? What would you say to those young brothers who may be on a path that you were on during your adolescent years?
Right. What we see taking place, it have been taking place for a long time with young black men, destroying themselves and destroying each other. You and I and many others, we try to come up with solutions to stop this all the time. The perfect words to say. I remember being young, and when you young, man, you don't think that nobody understand where you come from, even though that they were young.
Right.
You ain't trying to hear nothing. And for us to have a beautiful future for our people and for all people, what we seeing has to stop. So I would say to a younger guy, like, listen, let's be realistic. If you out here in the streets and tearing up the community, destroying each other, shooting at each other, selling drugs, and then you having children into this world, that you're preparing this world for your children. You're preparing this world for your future.
Right.
You're creating a world where your family exists in, right in your neighborhood.
Right.
So what I would say, I wish that awareness really grows to where we see that A plus B equals C.
Most definitely.
If I do this and I do this, this is going to be the result. There's no good ending to being in the streets. There's no good ending.
At all.
Either you're going to end up in prison or you're going to end up dead. And in today's generation, it don't seem like they care. They celebrate death too damn much, and they don't make the connection or the role that they play into the future that's coming after them. Everybody want to die and be buried with all of their money and their Gucci clothes.
Right.
But we say generational wealth, but we don't understand it.
Right.
We don't understand what that means.
Most definitely.
Generational wealth ain't how much you can make and what you die with. But how are you preparing the future? And our younger generations need to know that they not the last damn generation. You just playing a part in this chain, and it's going to be more of our people that comes after you, hopefully.
Right.
But it's a lot of work to be done. And I'm out here in the streets getting it done. I'm big on anti-violence. I'm big on anti-mass incarceration.
Most definitely.
I have a lot of things that I stand on, and it's a lot of work to be done. So not only would I say that to the youth, what I'm saying to those of us that's older is it's a lot of work to be done. And it's enough out here for all of us to stand up and start taking some of it.
Most definitely.
Taking care of your family, being there for your family is not good enough anymore. Because there's a lot of men and a lot of fathers that's not there to take care of theirs. So we got to start reaching into the community and doing more. We have to do more.
Right. I agree, beloved, 1,000%. Well, listen, y'all already know what it is. It's Big Pressure TV. Marvin Cotton was in the building, the one and only, the God.
Check me out on Facebook, Marvin Cotton Jr. Check me out on Instagram, the_real_FMC. Also, Better Not Broken on Instagram as well as on Facebook. Check me out. Look me up. See what I got coming up. Marvin Cotton Jr. Speaks.com. Check out my book. It's on sale right now. It'll be on Amazon in the next few days. It'll be on Amazon. Check me out.
Let them know why they should tap into that Big Pressure TV.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, when my brother Will called me and wanted me to do this, he's been consistent and putting out good content for people to eat on. We living in a world now where everything is empty. Everybody are living these empty lives, these fake lives, covering their lives up, and really not being real. He's been consistent since day one. He's been real since day one. And he has a desire to really give people something that they can take and make something real with themselves in their life. That's like truly what he's trying to do. So when he wanted me to come on here and do this is a no-brainer. This is my life. This is what I live to do. So when you call, that's what I got going on. And I'm aware of other things that you're working on. So I know what you got coming for the people. And I think y'all going to love it. So stay tapped in and be able to take a little bit from every story that that he showed. And you'll see how your life grow from it.
Yeah, we cover all aspects. Big Pressure TV, you already know what it is. The God.